Hey there, mamas. This is Lee with Creative Two-Time Mom, and this is going to be a video about our birth story with my oldest. Now, Noah is actually 8.5 years old, but I realized I have never sat down and made a video or wrote a blog post about our birth experience with him. And I think each child is unique and each child is special. So there was some details and just some memories that I wanted to put down for the future, that I wanted to put down for my kids, and I thought I would share them with you as well. Like I said, Noah is my oldest. He's 8.5. He's an October baby. He keeps me on my toes constantly. He is just one of those, he's a natural firstborn kid. He really is. He's got all those qualities that you think of. Strong leader, knows his mind, and is constantly pushing the boundaries. Now, my husband and I got married really quickly. From the time we started dating until the time we were married was actually less than a year. So when we got married, we made the decision that we really wanted to spend some time with just us. We wanted to wait a while until we got pregnant, and for the most part, we really did. Our plan was to have a baby after about 5 years of marriage, and Noah came just before our fourth anniversary? No, just after our fourth anniversary. So for the most part, we stuck with the plan. I got a little anxious. We were living down in Sacramento, and we were youth pastors down there, and I came back up to our old church to go to a women's retreat. We had been down there for a little over a year, and some old friends had invited me to go on this retreat. I thought, why not? That'll be fun. It'll be a good chance to see everybody again. And I got up here, and one of the girls that we went to church with was pregnant, and pretty far along. She was probably about 6 or 7 months. And it just absolutely floored me. My best friend had a year, her daughter was almost a year and a half. So, I had friends who had babies, but really other than her, none of my other friends were having babies yet. And I got up here and I was like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant. And it just struck me as like, we've been married 3 years. We were going to try after 4, and it was like, we're at that stage. We are actually getting to that place where we might start having those conversations. So I went home and I told my husband, I was like, all of a sudden it just clicked for me. I was like, I am ready to have a baby. So he thought, well, that's great, but I'm not making any money because we're youth pastors and we're part-time. And I was making probably more money than he was at that point. And I'm like, I don't care. We got to figure it out. We had no insurance. I was like, we just have to figure it out. And I thought, I'm not going to do anything absolutely crazy. I'm going to wait till I have insurance, but I need to get the ball rolling here. So we went home, we started talking about it, and we looked into some private insurance, and we found a way to make it work. And we met with an insurance agent, and about 2 months after we got insurance, we started trying. And we were super excited about it, and I think I went like a month of trying, had my period, nothing happened. Went 2 months of trying, had my period, and after 2 months I was already like, oh my goodness, why is this not happening? I know, ridiculous, right? So the 3rd month, we took the kids and we went to the snow, and we went sledding, and it was a place I had never been before, and it was crazy. I was making fun of the kids. I was like, oh, it's not that bad. So I get on a sled and I go down the hill, and I just about, I'm lucky I didn't end up in the hospital. I bruised my back. I whipped my head around. This whole thing, I had horrible cramps. I just thought, oh my gosh, if I was pregnant, I'm not now, because it was just this horrible experience. So I kind of didn't pay attention that month. For some reason, that was January. And for some reason, I just didn't pay attention to when I should have had my period, and I didn't track it. And I went to work. I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was well, kind of 3. I was on call to be a substitute teacher. I was working at a Sylvan Learning Center as a tutor, and I was also working for a geological environmental consulting as like the front desk gal. So at that job, I worked with all guys, and they all had the flu. It was a horrible flu season, and they'd all been in and out of the office, and I think there was 4 other guys in the office, and they had all had it. So I was the last person standing, and I called my boss one day and I was like, I feel horrible. I feel so sick. I have to stay home. He's like, yeah, it's probably just the flu that's going around. I was like, yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. Working 2 or 3 jobs and the flu's going around. I'm bound to get it. So I stayed home and I laid on the couch and I was just tired, achy, tired. And I looked at my husband and I said, I haven't taken a pregnancy test in a while. He goes, oh yeah, you haven't. I said, let's go to Walmart. So we lived down the street. We went and picked one up. And we came home, and I had to laugh because I was like, this was supposed to be the flu. How am I going to tell my boss that I stayed home just because I was sick and it's not going away for 9 months? So that was when we found out we were pregnant. And my husband, of course, crazy man that he is, as soon as the line pops up, he's on the phone. He's on the phone with his family. I'm on the phone with my family. I told my mom, but I don't think I told anybody else because I did tell everybody else. Yeah, so it was right after I had been at home the week before, and so we just called right away. We knew it was going to be a while before we saw everybody. So we're living in Sacramento, and I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, and my husband's doing youth pastoring and plus some jobs on the side, and we're just happy. This is our first pregnancy. Everything's going well. Everything's going great. This is where we are. We're really happy with our church. We're really happy with our living situation. And, of course, I had the most random cravings with Noah. I craved red things, which made me laugh. And I attribute it to the vitamin C. I wanted watermelon. I found I was pregnant in February, and from there on out, all I wanted was watermelon. I craved strawberries, tomatoes, red bell peppers. Every red fruit or vegetable you can imagine. That's what I wanted. Cherries. It was hilarious. My husband was buying a watermelon probably once a month all throughout the summer. So that's where we were. We were really happy. We were doing great. And then things started to kind of unravel at the church that we were at. There was a lot of things that were said, a lot of things that were done, and we just started our eyes really opened up to what was actually going on. And to make things even more complicated, my job at the consulting firm, my boss was on the board of our church. He was also the father of 2 of our youth group kids, and he was my boss. So that made things kind of sticky and kind of interesting. So Dave and I just decided this is not where we're meant to be. We need to move back to where we were before, go back to our old church, get some more discipling there, and re-evaluate what our vision is. So here I am, 6 months pregnant, leaving. At that point, I really wasn't substitute teaching. I was tutoring, and I was working at this firm, and I was basically working almost 12-hour days. So I'm leaving 2 steady jobs. He'd gotten a raise. He was still part-time at the church, but he had gotten a raise. And we're leaving. I don't think we had any family in Sacramento at that time. But we were moving back to the town that we lived in prior, but there was no family there either. So it was such a backward scenario. We had no job moving here. I had no job moving here. I knew I wasn't going to get a job because nobody was going to hire me at 6 months pregnant. We had no place to live, and really not a very concrete plan. So we moved back here, and we moved in with some really good friends of ours, the one that had the little girl already, and she was also pregnant. She was 4 months pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant.
So this is going to be the second part of Noah's birth story. When I went to go put these videos on YouTube, for some reason it wouldn't upload this one. I think maybe it's too long. I don't know. So I'll try to finish up without saying quite as much as I did the first time, but still hopefully not forgetting anything. I wrote it all down just in case I forgot what I was talking about. So we were living with some friends. There was 5 of us. There's 2 couples, and the other couple had an 18-month-old. And we were looking for a place to live. What I thought was going to be the hardest about the transition was getting a job for my husband. What ended up being the hardest was finding a place for us to live, because we had 2 cats and nobody wanted to let us have pets anywhere. Even though we had a great renter's history, everybody was turning us down for that. So we actually ended up getting a queen-size air mattress and sleeping on our friend's living room floor for like 2 months. And at the beginning of this, both the guys were unemployed, both of us women were pregnant, and there was an 18-month-old running around the apartments. There was 5 of us. Luckily, these are very good friends and we got along really well. But looking back, I think about it now and I go, that could have been a complete disaster. About 2 months after doing that, though, I kind of perfected the roll off the air mattress move in the morning. So after about 2 months of that, we found an apartment within that same complex that we rented, which was good because we were really close to these friends of ours, and we'd already met several of the neighbors in the complex and knew the landlord and everything. Throughout my pregnancy with Noah, I actually had 3 due dates. I had the original due date of October the 11th. I had one for October the 4th. And then, as you go later on in your pregnancy, the ultrasounds aren't as accurate. So when I moved back here and had a new obstetrician, she did one later in my pregnancy, and she gave me like September 23rd or something. So it was way off from the 11th. I always felt like the October 11th was going to be the most accurate, and it actually kind of ended up being the most accurate. Just about the beginning of October, about a week before my due date, and they were kind of going by October 4th on my charts, I got the flu and I got really sick. My husband was working, and I would basically, our bathroom was right next to our bedroom, and I would crawl from the bed into the bathroom, I'd throw up, and then I would basically crawl back to bed, and that's all I did all day long. So I was going to the doctor weekly at this point, and I lost 7 pounds right at the end of my pregnancy. And I couldn't see it because my stomach was still huge. The baby didn't hardly lose any weight, but it was miserable. My doctor was freaking out, and I was freaking out a little bit, and it was horrible. So then I went into that last appointment, and she's still thinking in her mind that I'm probably overdue based on the earlier September due date. And so she wants to start talking induction, and I'm like, well, my mom's here, so if you're thinking tomorrow or next week, just induce me tomorrow. So she's like, okay, come in tomorrow night around 7, and, or no, I guess it was a couple days later. Come in around 7 and we'll induce you. So I left that appointment thinking I do not want to be induced. I had friends that had been on Pitocin and all that and talked about how horrible it was. So I went home and I made my husband help me, and we live next to a high school. And so I figured out that within that last week of trying to put myself into labor, we walked like 20 miles. I was doing something like hundreds and hundreds of squats every day because I would hang onto the chair and I'd do my little squats, or I'd have him spot me or whatever. And on the night of the 11th, which was what I would figure as my due date, I actually started to feel like I was having contractions, but they weren't consistent, so I didn't say anything to my husband. We just went to bed. The next morning I woke up, they were like 20 minutes apart, and I thought, you gotta be kidding me. Like, how long are my contractions gonna stay at 20 minutes apart? So I still didn't say anything, and it got worse and worse as the day went on. I was sitting on a birthing ball, and I was bouncing, and I was doing squats and lunges and walking all day long, trying to speed things up. And around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my husband and my mom convinced me to go to the hospital. And I'm thinking I'm going to be like at a 2, right? I'm not going to be very far along. And I get to the receptionist desk and I'm like hanging over and I'm trying to be really calm and tell her, I'm in labor. This is my name. I'm already pre-registered. And she goes, let me check your file. And she comes back and she's like, you're not supposed to be here till 7. You need to go home. And I'm like, no, I'm in labor. I'm like, at this point, I'm no longer calm. You need to get me in bed. So they take me into a room and my husband's cousin and his wife lived here. So they show up at the hospital and they're like, oh, can we, do you want some pictures? I'm like, sure. And then she just gets my camera and starts taking pictures of everything. Oh my gosh. And I hadn't had my epidural yet and I just wanted to kill her. So my husband was like, okay, it's time for you to leave now. And he kind of took care of everything. And I came in and gave me my epidural. And after that, I was like, okay, I don't care. Everybody can come visit. I'm not like pushing or anything yet. Everybody can come and go as they please. And we had several people in and out of the room. We were attending a small group at that time and it was on that night. So our whole small group calls and like gets on speakerphone and is talking and everything. And that didn't bother me because I'd had my epidural. So I was happy at that point. But just before I got my epidural, the guy comes in. Well, the nurse came in and she was like, do you want an epidural? And I was like, yeah. I was like, but I'm probably only like a 2. She's like, well, we're not supposed to give it to you after a 7, and you're probably an 8, but we'll give it to you now. We'll just call it a 7. And I'm like, I'm an 8? I thought I was going to be like a 2. So I had the epidural, was totally happy, and had all these people coming and hanging out. And I'm at like a 10 finally, and my water still hasn't broke. So they broke my water. They turned my epidural off. She's like, you're going so fast. Your body's going so fast and so hard. You'll have this baby like that. 2.5 hours later, I'm still pushing and I know something's wrong. At the last doctor's appointment, when she went to go find his heartbeat, it was on the wrong side of my body and I didn't say anything and she didn't say anything. So after 2 hours of pushing, I'm like, this baby's face up, isn't he? And my nurse just looks at me and doesn't really say anything. She's like, we're gonna have to do a C-section. Still doesn't really actually tell me, even though I know in my heart what's going on. So I'm like, okay, fine. So we go in, they wheel me into the OR, and my husband, they get him all ready, prepped real quick. They put the gown and whole thing on him. And like not hardly any time later, he hardly made any sound when he was born. Not that it was a bad thing. He was just a quiet baby. And they're like, oh, your baby's here, the whole thing. They check him out and they want to bring him around the curtain so I can see him. And I'm expecting this like 8 to 9 pound baby, which my doctor told me, I can't tell you for sure, but this is probably what you're having. And he comes out and he's like this super skinny, almost 2 feet long, just barely over 7 pounds, skin and bones. Like he's got skin on his elbows and his knees where it's just all wrinkled and crinkled over the bones. Like, that's not my baby. It's a good thing he's the only baby in this OR because I would think that's not my baby. And it was just like, we used to call him an old man because he would just have these wrinkles of skin on his body. Just cracked me up. I didn't get to hold him right away, of course, because I'm having a C-section, but the anesthesiologist has got our camera and taking all these pictures, and my husband brings him up so I can kind of see him and talk to him and go through recovery. And so he actually ended up being born on October 13th, and like I said, he was almost 2 feet long. He's a really, really tall kid and just over 7 pounds. And my doctor actually told me later on, she's like, when I went to go take him out, there was like this suction sound because I had pushed for so long. So he ended up being face up, which was why I had to have a C-section. And he was just wedged in there and just determined that he was going to do things the hard way. And I joke now that that's so indicative of his personality to do things the hard way. He could have just flipped over and been born and it would have been no big deal, but that's not my Noah. My Noah is You say it's black, I say it's white, and I'm gonna give it a try. So it's always doing the things the hard way. He was perfect firstborn child. That was not his personality as a baby. As a baby, he was very easygoing, very quiet, hardly cried. When he did cry, he had a squeak. When he was born, his, I can't remember what it's called. I don't know, but his windpipe was shaped like an oval instead of a circle. And so it just took, he had to outgrow it. It didn't take him very long. I know some kids that are born with it, it takes a really long time to outgrow it. He outgrew within a couple of weeks. So we just kind of got used to the squeak, and he would cry. It wasn't a high-pitched squeak. It was just this, it was so cute. Easygoing baby at that age. So it was awesome. So that's Noah's birth story. Just wanted to come on here and record that for memory's sake. And if you made it through this video, congratulations. Thanks for sharing this with me. Talk to you later, mamas.